Am I the only one seeing what's going on right now? It looks like inflation is yet again on the rise. The numbers for March are about to come out, and it's expected over 8% increase in inflation year over year. This is craziness. And what is the Fed doing to combat this inflation? They're raising rates. Is this going to have any effect at all? And is it going to work? I mean, how high can they raise rates before the whole system implodes and we go back into quantitative easing? In the meantime, what should you be doing with your money? Where should you put your money? I believe that we're currently in a bull run for precious metals and that they can go much higher than they are currently. Now, if you want to potentially capitalize on this upswing, you can look at buying physical gold or perhaps investing in a mining company because, as we know, you can get leverage over just the spot price of gold. Now, I am super excited because joining me today to talk about all of this and more is the CEO of Gold Mining Inc., Alastair Still. Alastair, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much for having me on. Pleasure to be here.
Honestly, the pleasure is all mine. I wanted to ask you about gold. Do you think we are in a super cycle for precious metals? And if so, are we just in the middle innings? There's a lot going on. We're about to see the March inflation numbers be released, likely over 8% year over year. We also have the tragic Russian invasion of Ukraine going on. Taking into account these factors, do you believe we are in a super cycle for precious metals? And if so, are we just sort of in the middle of it?
It's a great question, and certainly the fundamentals seem very solid for suggesting that the prices we're seeing today could go considerably higher, and I certainly believe that to be true. The inflation numbers that are coming out, regardless of what numbers the Fed puts out, we can all see that inflation is real. We see it every time we're at the grocery store or filling our cars up at the gas station. So we know that that's real. The tragedy that we speak of, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that's having an impact geopolitically as well. And I think there's all these things pointing to uncertainty in the markets, and that typically has been a very strong time for people to be investing in precious metals and gold in particular. And gold has stood the test of time for millennia as a safe haven buying for people. It retains its value. It can either be created or destroyed. So I think it's a great time to be in gold and precious metals, and I do see the prices going even higher.
I couldn't agree with you more. Now, the Fed is obviously trying to combat inflation with these rate hikes. Do you think that this will have an effect on the price of precious metals? I mean, will we see gold get smacked down, or can it withstand this?
Well, I think fundamentally gold will withstand it. Now, that's not to say there won't be some bumps along the road. Anything never follows a straight line trajectory. So we could see some, dips and some peaks, but overall the trend I think is still very strong for an upward movement in the price. And we talk, and we've been very focused on gold, and by the very nature of our company, Gold Mining Inc., we have a large inventory of gold resources. We have over 16 million ounces gold equivalent ounces measured and indicated, another 16 million gold equivalent ounces inferred. But we also have an important component of copper in our inventory. We have over 2 billion pounds of copper. And I think we've seen copper prices, nearing in on $5 a pound. So that's near decades high of copper. And fundamentals are very strong for copper. And having a nice copper component that occurs with gold at a few of our deposits, that's also an important piece that we have in our portfolio as well.
Absolutely. Diversity is important. Many commodities are performing very well right now. And coming back to gold, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to investing in gold, one can often get leverage over the spot price by investing in a mining company, sometimes 5 to 50 times leverage, right? So what would you attribute this to?
Well, I think that the leverage that we have to the price of gold is a very important component, and particularly at a company like ours, which has such a large resource of ounces. It's simple, simple theory to think, okay, a price of gold increase of $100 or $200 per ounce, and you multiply that by some 32 million ounces in our portfolio. That really is on top of the margins that would come from previous resource studies that we've run gold prices at, say, $1,600 per ounce. So, a small change in the price of gold, a 10 or 20%, can actually put into multiples into our share price, which I think is the advantage to holding equity as well as having a component of physical metal in one's portfolio. But there's a much greater leverage to the gold price by owning equities rather than just the physical metal itself.
That totally makes sense to me. And I should mention, if people want to get more information about Gold Mining Inc., they can always get the free alerts at gldgnews.com. I have subscribed to your newsletter, and I also am a shareholder. So I'm so excited to be talking to you. Speaking of shareholders, Gold Mining Inc. has attracted some huge names in the gold space, like Doug Casey, Eric Sprott, BlackRock, just to name a few. What would you say it is about Gold Mining Inc. that has been so attractive to these big names?
Well, I think you've mentioned a few of them, and I think what people recognize in our portfolio is a couple of key attributes, which I'm sure your investors look for when they're looking at any equity play, and that is, the people. Who are the quality people running the company, and what are the assets of the company? And I think gold mining has both in spades. We're really strong depth in our portfolio and our people side. I joined this company just about a year and a half ago, and I've been CEO for a year now, and I'd spent almost 25 years working for major operating mines like Newmont and Gold Corp and Kinross. And when I came and saw this opportunity to work with Amir Adnani, who'd built this company from scratch, he'd stayed with the company over 10 years. And I saw this portfolio of assets, which are just waiting to see some attention, waiting to have the value unlocked from them. I was very excited by that. So that got me involved. And I know that's why other people are involved. Since I've come on, I've added to our technical team. We've added over 75 years of experience to our technical team. We now have a key engineer who works with us in design and study phases. We have a resource geologist who can do the detailed block models and resource estimation, who has more than almost 30 years experience working for majors and intermediates. And just last week, we announced a new VP of exploration, who's a very experienced and seasoned international geologist who's made multi-million ounce discoveries and has a great success. So we've added to a team combined with Amir and the financial knowledge and the presence that was already here, strong technical components. So you check off the people side, and then you go to the resource side on the assets. We're incredibly depth portfolio. There's 11 projects that we have resources on. They're all in the Americas. We're in good, solid operating jurisdictions: Canada, the US, Colombia, Brazil, and Peru. All strong mining areas, all adding up to some significant projects which have seen not a lot of attention in the last few years. So we're not rehashing projects that have been kicked around and have been explored to death. We see some projects that have seen under exploration in the last few years, some great opportunities. So combining the people with the strengths of the assets in the ground, it's a great opportunity, and that's why we've been seeing some very positive buying and some big names buying into our stock in the last while.
That is excellent. And I should say one thing that stood out to me about Gold Mining Inc., other than the fact that you're one of the few junior gold companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange, was that you have this connection with Gold Royalty Corp. You own a considerable amount of shares. Can you talk about how that adds value?
Yeah, absolutely. This is a perfect example of how, with such a diversified portfolio, we can unlock value for our shareholders. And it was just in 2021, just a year ago actually, that we executed on the strategy to write small royalties on the projects in our portfolio, put those into a new vehicle called Gold Royalty Corp. We brought in a very experienced management team led by David Garofalo, who was the former CEO of Gold Corp. And I'd worked with Dave for a number of years at that company. And so I actually act as a technical advisor, director of technical services to Gold Royalty. But we spun that out, created this new company. And what Gold Mining was left with was 20 million shares. And those 20 million shares today, and the price of that as we're doing this interview, is around just over $4 US per share. So that means we've crystallized some 80 million US dollars onto our balance sheet. That's been a tremendous win for us. And as an added bonus for ourselves and our shareholders, Gold Royalty has just recently announced that they're going to, and they actually just paid out their first ever cash dividend. So we're now actually receiving dividend income from those shares, which we're forecasting to be close to $1 million this year on dividend income alone. So that's another nice little bonus that a lot of juniors don't have, is cash coming in this case from from dividends we hold in those 20 million gold royalty shares.
That is something great to have for sure. Now, one other question I had for you was about your gold resource being worth around $4 or $5 an ounce. Can you talk about some of the other mining companies and maybe what a comparison would be?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a point that many people focus on and then sometimes lump our assets together. Maybe that's too easy to do. And I think our efforts, what we're showing now is that we have strong individual assets and each one has its own strengths and merits. And you raise a very good metric, which many people in our industry like to compare to. It's an enterprise value per resource ounce. So if you stripped off the cash on our balance sheet, you stripped off the value that we have in the gold royalty shares, we're left with something like plus or minus $5 per ounce, which is insanely low. Many of our peers, and you can pick one company, but I like to pick a basket of companies so you get a broader mix to compare against. But it really doesn't matter who you compare it to. But many of those other companies trade at 20, 30, 40, even $50 per resource ounce. So up to 10 times higher than we trade at. And really, what our job has been doing is trying to show that the projects we have are at least as comparable, if not better, than many of those resource companies that trade at significant multiples above ours. And I'll give just one example. Like earlier this year, we announced a preliminary economic assessment on our La Mina project in Colombia. And that showed that it had an NPV value of close to $340 million. So here we have one project alone who has a preliminary economic assessment worth more than the current market cap of the entire company. Never mind the fact that we have almost $100 million on our balance sheet. So, and that's just one of 11 projects. So it gets pretty exciting once you start looking at the individual assets and breaking them out and showing the value. And I think really that's what myself and the new technical team we're going to be doing is showing there's value in these projects, doing some current work on them, and really trying to get some excitement going as we advance the projects forward.
And speaking of unlocking value, I know you mentioned you have 11 projects. Can you talk about the Whistler project up in Alaska?
It certainly is a priority for us. We think it's a tremendous resource. It's almost 10 million gold equivalent ounces in all categories of resources. So it's a very large resource. It's only about 100 miles from Anchorage, so it's in a good part of the state for doing development. The state of Alaska themselves have just announced funding. They're going to fund $8.5 million for a feasibility study to access road into the part of Alaska where our project is. So having road access that's being funded and sponsored by the state, that's an excellent opportunity to give us infrastructure to develop the project. We have just announced this past week, actually, that we've appointed a new VP of exploration and who will also take the lead as a CEO to begin the work at Alaska on Whistler to get it going. That's Tim Smith. Tim is a very experienced global exploration geologist. He spent many years working in the north. He was in Yukon, which is in northern Canada, right beside Alaska. He had a major discovery there, some 5 million ounces. The Coffee project for Kaminak Gold, and that project was sold to Gold Corp for over $500 million. So Tim is a very experienced exploration geologist with good international experience. He'll be leading our work on Whistler as we advance that project. And again, the model for Whistler could be very similar to Gold Royalty. If we proceed with an IPO for Whistler, we can unlock value for our shareholders. We can have a significant shareholding in that company and avoid dilution to our own shareholders to fund it to explore it.
Yes, no doubt. And Alastair, are there any other exciting catalysts for Gold Mining Inc. that potential investors should be looking at?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and certainly we've touched on our Whistler project, and we have created a new entity now called U.S. Gold Mining Inc. So that's a separate entity, and our plan would be to do something similar that we did last year with Gold Royalty, is to launch that publicly, and so stay tuned for that. Exciting times for unlocking value on our Whistler project. We are actually right in the final stages and gearing up for our first exploration drill program. We'll be having some news out on that shortly. We'll be targeting one of our projects in Colombia, in fact, our La Mina project in Colombia, where we've just announced a preliminary economic assessment. We think that with a modest drill program, we can expand the known resources and try and add resources which would fundamentally increase the value that we've shown already in the preliminary economic assessment. So we're very excited about the prospect of drilling starting at La Mina. And also one of our key projects is our San Jorge project in Brazil. And San Jorge is a great project. It's a high-grade open pit resource, very close to state highway. So it's got great infrastructure, the power lines nearby. We have a land agreement with a local rancher, so it's got good access. There's no illegal miners working on it today. So high grade, near power, and a great part of Brazil open for mining. We're very excited about our San Jorge project. We've been completing a very comprehensive infill sampling program from past drill programs, which were not completely sampled. We've been sampling that core. We've collected over 3,000 samples, and we'll be releasing some of those results as we start to put new interpretation to San Jorge and advance that project in Brazil. So just by those 3 projects alone, at Whistler, La Mina, and San Jorge, we're getting very excited. And at the same time, too, we're also looking to bring on some new partnerships. I say with 11 projects, we won't advance them all. We've prioritized the ones we want to look at, but we also are looking at a number of opportunities to bring in partners who can help us advance our projects together.
Well, Alastair, I will say drill results get me very excited. I know that's one of the things you mentioned. I will be following very closely, seeing how all of that pans out. But I know that Gold Mining Inc. has so much more going on than just that. Is there anything you'd like to add as we finish up here?
No, I just think it's an incredibly exciting time for our company and the industry. We've seen the fundamentals for a rise in metals prices. We think that will continue. We think our stock is highly leveraged to the price of gold, and we're extremely undervalued compared to any of our peers on a resource basis. And as we do work, as we show value in our projects, I think there's some very significant returns available for our shareholders. I'm very excited for the year ahead of us.
I have to say I am very excited as well, and I do want to say a huge thank you, Alastair, for joining me today, and I look forward to following up with you again in the future.
I look forward to our next discussion together. Have a great day.
And I do want to say a massive thank you so much to all of you for watching my video. If you want to watch more videos about gold and silver, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you all in the next one. Silver Dragons, out.